Hi boys and girls, Mrs. Blackburn here for your writing lesson. This is day 4. We are going to continue editing our lesson over Tall Tales. Let's go ahead and begin. Your learning goal. Students will edit their drafts using standard English conventions. Success criteria. I can successfully edit my tall tale using proofreader marks for punctuation, capitalization, commas, indentions for paragraphs, quotation marks, and spelling. All right. Now, we looked at word choice the other day when we were revising, and we talked about using www.thesource.com, that website for great words to help us look up synonyms and improve our word choice for overused words. Today, to help us look and correct our spelling, we're going to take a look at dictionary.com. So here's an example of dictionary.com. On dictionary.com, you can see I just typed in the word crawl. If I wasn't sure how to spell crawl, you can kind of spell it the best you can or kind of guess. Check your spelling. If I'm not sure how to use the word, it tells you all kinds of things. It can tell you how to use it as a verb, tell you the numerous definitions if you want to use it as a noun, and then it will also give it to you in some sentences and give you some information. So here is dictionary.com. So that's a website that you could use in order to look up spelling and definitions of words. All right. Now we are going to go on. And we have read lots of great tall tales this week. Paul Bunyan and Thunder Rose were just a couple of them. Today what we're going to do is we are going to look a little closer at hyperboles because I want to make sure that you're understanding the hyperboles carefully, and then we'll go on to the editing piece. So a tall tale needs a hyperbole like a fish needs water. The use of a hyperbole in a tall tale serves several purposes. It paints a vivid picture of the larger-than-life main character, it adds humor to the story, and it makes the story memorable. So we're going to look at some of these examples, and then I'm going to show you some of the ways that I completed these hyperboles. Here's a couple examples. It was so hot, flowers pulled themselves up by their roots and crawled under the porch looking for shade. That was an example of a hyperbole. It was so cold, even polar bears wore jackets. Obviously, that's an exaggeration, and they're funny as well. All right, so I was given here on number 1, it says, it was so cold, and I thought we could say, Jack Frost took a vacation in Florida. So cold that even Jack Frost didn't want to be there, right? Okay, and then number 2, it was so windy, houses were hunting for shelter. Okay, so there's another example of a hyperbole. And then here's our next one. It was so rainy, puddles were as tall as skyscrapers. Okay, now that is actually a simile, isn't it? And similes are important, or just as important to use in our tall tale as well. We want lots of figurative language in there. It was so hot, the paint melted off cars. Okay, so hot, the paint melted off cars. That would be really hot, wouldn't it? Okay, and then last, it was so foggy you needed to shovel your way home. Okay, so those are all examples of exaggerations, hyperboles, and you want to make sure that you have those. And these are all weather-related ones, so I thought they would be some good examples because you can still do some revising on your tall tale that you're going to turn in. Remember, your final draft is not due yet, so these couple days you're supposed to be doing revising and editing. Great. All right, so let's go on. I'm going to show you now just kind of a review. I know it's been a while since you've seen these. These are the proofreader marks, and we haven't looked at these for a while. So since I'm going to be using them when I'm editing, I want to make sure that you're understanding what I'm using. This is the mark, and if you see something circled, it means that it needs to be spelled correctly. So for example, L-I-E-K, you circle the word and then you just write it above it. This saves you a lot of eraser and you don't have to rewrite the whole thing. If you need to add a period somewhere, you just put a dot there and circle it. Okay. Now this would be, of course, if you are handwriting your tall tale out. And I would highly recommend that you do that. And then when you are ready to turn in your final copy, that would be where you type it. Okay. But most people do better if they write it out and then make the revisions and then type it. But it kind of depends on your learning style. This is a caret, so it kind of goes like this, and then you put the comma underneath it. So, for example, Mary, and then there should have been a comma there. So you would put like a little caret there and then put the comma. And so that's what that means, that you need to insert a comma in those two places. A question mark just means that you add a question mark. A lot of times I'll circle that just like we do with a period. Capitalization, if something needs capitalized, you put 3 lines under the letter. If something is capital and it needs to be lowercase, you'll see a slanted line through it. If you want to take something out instead of completely erasing it, all you have to do is do a loop-de-loop and pull like you're pulling it out. If you want to add something, because a lot of times when we write, our brain moves so much faster than our hands do, or sometimes we have it in our head and we think we write it down, but we don't. So maybe you wrote, I need new car instead of I need a new car. You can just put the caret there and then write A above it. All right? And then a lot of times what we need to do is we need to switch things around. I want to watch the game overall again. And you meant to say, I want to watch the game all over again. So if you go like that, that means that you want to switch all and over. And this is a very important one. Instead of erasing all your sentences and you meant to write a new paragraph where you have to indent 2 finger spaces in, you can simply make this symbol here. So it's kind of like a backward P with 2 lines through it. Okay? And then for quotation marks, you kind of do the same thing that you did for the other things. It's an upside down caret with the quotation marks above it. But all of these are very helpful to help you add and make editing marks and proofreading marks so that you don't have to go through and rewrite the whole thing, but you can quickly make changes to your writing and then go back later with your final, when you go to make your final draft, and then make the changes. But this makes it go a lot faster if you can kind of go through, slow your brain down, point to each word, and check and change as you do that. Read each word. Make sure that you're not reading the word that you think is there, but you're actually reading the word and words that are there, okay, that you actually did write down. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the revising and editing that we did do. Okay, this is actually just the editing. So we had who is with me when I say London is the best city in the world, even though it is fog bound for most part of the year. So we have this mark here because this should have been indented. So it should have gone 2 fingers in because it's the first word in a paragraph. It's the beginning of a paragraph. So you can simply use the paragraph, new paragraph line, and then who wasn't capitalized, so we use 3 lines underneath it. Then over here, we changed terrible to infamous. We already had done that. Drank to gulped. Then we were going to change ran to scurried. We took out then, and we changed it to no sooner had I opened it than. We took out then and replaced it with immediately. Here we have confused. I shut the door tight and turned on the radio to find out what was going on. Okay, this period is circled that you can see. So that's something that we'd want to change, the period there. Maybe it was a period it looks like there was a period that was forgotten there. So you want to put a period there and then circle it, okay? Unfortunately, the fog was so thick I could not even hear the radio news. I knew I had to make it to work somehow. I had promised my pupils they would have a science test that day and did not want to disappoint them by not showing up. So here's an example of the letter being capitalized and it shouldn't be. So you just draw a slanted line through it. And then here's another example where it should be a period, but there isn't one. So there should be a dot here in the middle, and then you circle it. My mind was still a bit foggy from my sleep to slumber. That was our revising that we did. And then here, I circled this word, and this is what you do when you do editing. You may say, I know this word is not spelled correctly, especially with all the word work that we've done this year. I know this word's not spelled correctly, but I'm not really sure how to spell it. So this is where you would look it up on dictionary.com or in a dictionary if you have a dictionary. Now, if I look it up, am I going to necessarily find the word grabbed? No, I'm going to have to look up the base or root word grab, and then it will give me a list of the other spellings like grabbing, grabs, grabbed, and that's where I will find the correct spelling for grabbed, okay? But you can do that, as you're editing and going through and proofreading, you need to look and say, I don't think that's spelled right, and circle it. The circled words are the ones that you're going to go back and look up and then change. So then when you find the correct spelling, you write it above. Remember, we have to double that G, okay? And then over here we have station that's spelled incorrectly, and we know that some other words that are spelled with the shun sound at the end. So I know that the shun sound is spelled T-I-O-N. So I'm going to change it to that, and you can check that with the dictionary. Same with vanilla, you can look that up. This is what you do. You would go through and look up those words that you've circled, but you can see we have taking out things and replacing them. We are capitalizing words at the beginning of a sentence with 3 lines underneath them, changing our words. This is where I have a quotation mark here, where it's actually being, I yelled out, listen everybody, but when I wrote this, I forgot to put them here. So that's where I use my upside down caret and my quotation marks to insert those. So this is a quick way to edit, and it goes very fast and quickly. I will put a copy of the proofreader marks in Schoology so that you can use those to help you, and that way you don't have to feel so overwhelmed with having to erase and start all over again. Now, your next step will be to write your final draft with all of the corrections, but this is day 4, and we are working on our tall tales. Make sure you have those hyperboles, make sure you have those similes in there, and make sure that you have all those important parts that we talked about. So let's take a look here. And in summary, characteristics of a tall tale. We need a character facing a challenge. Remember, we have some kind of wicked weather. We have to have a setting and a problem. We have to have a solution, and we have to have some kind of ending. How everything's wrapped up and what's going to happen from this point on. All right, so I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to reading your writing.